Hey everyone, happy Friday.
TGIF, another Friday. Um, what can we say? It's Friday. It doesn't feel like a Friday. Unfortunately, if you do drink beer or something, the alcohol is still prohibited. There's no way to get any.
Yeah.
So we're gonna stick to water. Cheers. Happy Friday.
They actually opened wine shops for 2 days in Bombay a couple of days ago, and I drove by, tried to get some beer, but there was like 300, 400 people in line. It was pretty crazy. So, no happy hour today. But yeah, we're happy. We're speaking with Emily from Singapore about a interesting topic. Breastfeeding while training for an ultramarathon. It's something new. We haven't really touched upon something like this before, and I'm sure a lot of ladies and hopefully some guys as well would be interested.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great topic, especially nowadays where as a woman, you wear a lot of hats. So one of those can be a mom, and especially if you're into endurance sports or any type of sports, sometimes becoming a mom gets, you have to plan it, or maybe it's not planned, but it's definitely a milestone and a different stage of life. And I'm sure there's a lot of adjustments and adaptations that you have to get used to and find new ways to train. And so I'm really excited to listen to Emily and see what she went through and how she managed that. And along with that, I think she's also a great endurance athlete. And I'm really excited to get to know her more and speak to her about this topic, and also veganism, plant-based diets, and much more.
Yep. So Emily has been vegan since 2012. She decided to run her first marathon in 2014, and she's been addicted ever since. She's been competing in ultras, both on roads and trails. She was crowned the 2018 100K Australian champion and also competed in the 2018 100K World Championships. On trails, her proudest moment is 5th place finish at the 2019 Ultra Trail Australia. Emily was actually born and raised on the south shore of Montreal in Canada. She is a dual Canadian and Australian citizen, and she currently resides in Singapore with her husband and 3-year-old daughter, Sienna. Truly global.
Yes.
Truly global, Emily. All right. Well, let's bring her in. Hey.
Hey, thank you so much.
Hi, Emily.
Hello. Hi, Monica. Hi, Amit.
We're really excited to have you. Listen to you talk. Listen to your journey. I think it's a very different. You were into skating before, I believe, and now you're into trail running. So I'm really excited to listen to your journey and see how that has progressed and why you got into trail running.
Yeah.
So that's.
Yeah. So we were doing a little bit of research, and I guess it started with speed skating and track when you were a kid. And how did you gravitate towards running from speed skating?
So I started speed skating in 1994 after I watched because I'm 35. I'm proud of my age. I'm 35 years old. So I watched the 94 Olympics when I was about 10, and I said I want to go to the Olympics. That's what I want to do. So I started speed skating because I already like skating. So I was like, I didn't want to do figure skating because my neighbor was doing it. So I wanted to do something different. So I got into speed skating. And right away, I loved it. I was really bad at the beginning, like really bad. But then I had my dream in my head. I was like, I'm going to go to the Olympics. And I just kept going. I never made it to the Olympics. The Canadian team is probably one of the strongest. So it's my excuse. It was really strong, but I made it 3 times to the World Junior Championships. I was briefly on the Canadian senior team as well. So I did pretty well, and I have the best memories of my life from speed skating. But at the same time, I was also running during the summer to keep my shape and everything. And my dad used to always sign me up for track races because he was like, "Oh, you're a good runner, so you might." And I was actually doing really well in track, but running was always my kind of the sights, like my way of training for speed skating. But when I quit skating, then I got into running. But it was more, for a while, it was more just like just to keep fitness and everything. But running was always there. And in many times in my life when I had harder, things, like when things were not going so well, I felt like I could always fall back on running. It was also like a good way of just, if I didn't feel good, just going for a run and, just emptying my head. So it's always been a part of my life, an important part of my life in some way. But as you said, in 2014, I was 2 years vegan and I had just so much energy. I was just feeling so good that I decided to sign up for my first marathon, which was the Melbourne Marathon. I just loved it right away. I trained for about 3 months. I bought a program of the internet, like when those cookie cutter ones. Yeah. and I stuck to it like to the T, and I did pretty well. So I was just like, oh, cool. I really love it. And the day after, I signed up for my first trail 50K.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You were addicted right away.
Yeah. So, and since then I've run a few 100Ks. I've never gone over the 100K distance. I like to have some speed. So I like the 50K, 100K distance. But I do have plans eventually when my coach let me, because he doesn't allow me for the moment. But I would like to do it. I would like to jump to the 100-mile distance for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, I can see where you want to do that. You want to do races where you're still able to run fast and finish at a more reasonable time compared to a 100-miler. And because of your experience with speed skating, I'm sure for that you had to use a lot of speed. So I can see how you're gravitated more towards the shorter distances right now. But I think once you're ready, 100 miles is always there.
Yeah.
It's a great challenge, I'm sure.
So people ask me sometimes about stage races, and I'm just like, I'm too young for that.
Yeah, that's just a whole different world, right?
I know, it's crazy. And
when you ran your first marathon, you were like, how do these guys run 100Ks?
Yeah.
And now, of course, that's the distance you're really comfortable with. But I guess, 100 miles and stage races, that's just a totally different ballgame.
Yeah.
Even with training between a 50-miler and a 100K, you may not have too much of a variation in training. It's still manageable. But when you go to 100 miles, it's a whole different ballgame.
How's it been since you transitioned to running after you quit skating? And I think you mentioned you were vegan before you were a runner. So how has being vegan benefited you as a trail runner now?
Yeah, so I remember what it was to be an athlete as a meat eater. So when I was a teenager, when I was a competitive speed skater, actually back in those days, it was very rare that you would see vegetarian or even worse, vegan. Like, I think I had never heard that word. I remember my mom telling me about that. She had heard of that woman who was vegan, and she was like, she only ate grass. Like it was, she was like, these people are very extreme. But I never really liked meat, so I felt forced because my coach was telling me back then, my coach when I was a teenager was telling me that you could not be fast if you didn't eat real protein. And by real protein, he meant meat, and especially horse meat. He was telling me. That's
okay.
Yeah, that's really well. It's very lean. So because in Canada we are used to, like, there's hunters a lot, so it's normal to eat like a moose or deer, that kind of meat, or even so it's in the same. It's very lean. So I remember I felt forced to eat that, but I didn't enjoy it. But then after that, like, I remember, training as well in my 20s, whatever, just like that. And I felt I had no recovery. And then I was just blaming, like, in between training sessions, I was not recovering well. And I was just blaming that on age, even though I was like 24, 25. But I was like, oh, I'm not recovering like when I was a teen because I'm old. But then when I switched to a plant-based diet, to a vegan diet, then like at the moment, like sometimes I'm blown away how much I recover quickly from training. Like sometimes I go 6 hours up and down, because in Singapore we have one hill, so everyone who wants to train for any kind of mountain races go to that hill. So sometimes I do like 5 hours up and down that hill and stuff. It still hits you. So also and the day after I feel fine. I can go for a run and just feel, and I'm just blown away because I'm in my almost late 30s, and I recover as well or even better than when I was a teenager. So yeah, to me that's the major difference.
Wow. Yeah, hang on a second. I'm going to turn my lamp on. I forgot that it's off.
Wow. So you've definitely seen, now you can't blame it on the fact that, I'm old or I'm getting old and I am definitely not recovering, or I don't feel that recovery yet. But what else has it been difficult for you? Have you always lived in Singapore? Has that been difficult living there and being a vegan, or is it pretty easy in Singapore?
So I'm born and raised in Montreal, Canada. When I was 23, I moved to Australia, and I lived in Australia for 8 years. That's where I met my husband. My husband is Singaporean. So we moved together 5 years ago here in Singapore. My husband is vegan as well. We turned vegan pretty much at the same time. So, I have him. Singapore is very vegan friendly. So it's really not hard, honestly. Like it's probably one of the easiest city in Asia to be vegan, and even Asia in general, like except for some very, like we've been at, say, Brunei or some places in Malaysia. It's really, it can be difficult. Like, cause I've been to races in places where it was like, all we had was like rice and some vegetables. That's it. Like, even then you can find something, but Singapore, we're extremely blessed. Like it's very, very easy. And it's fairly cheap as well. If you don't just go for like meat substitute, like, like Beyond Meat or whatever, if you just go for beans and tofu and tempeh is extremely cheap here, which is rare because everything is so expensive in this country. But if you stick to like the local vegetables, the rice, the beans, and the tofu, like it's very cheap. So yes, it's extremely easy to be a vegan in Singapore.
Yeah, simple food.
I think similar to India. I mean, now when I first moved to India, there was not very many vegan options in terms of products, but definitely in the last couple of years, there's been a surge in more options. And of course, you can never go wrong with the fresh local produce. There's such a variety here, and there's also a lot of fruit. So we're blessed with that. We don't get tempeh like you do. That's something that I wish we had. But we'll stick with tofu. Tofu is pretty widely available, so that's
okay.
We've been reading about tempeh and see if we can sort of make some of it at home. We don't get it here, and we love it.
It's good. Here it's so cheap because it comes from Indonesia and Malaysia, so it's one of their main food. But at the moment, with the COVID-19 or whatever, we're kind of short on tempeh. So
we're short on tofu. We haven't been able to get tofu last I think 2.5 weeks now. And
it's very weird.
It's because of COVID. But going back to your first ultra, your ultra was an Australian 50K championship.
Yes.
Was that's pretty brave. Was that planned?
I didn't know.
Okay.
My friend told me like it's called the Two Base Trail Run, and it's a fairly well-known trail race in Australia, in Victoria, the state that I was living in. My friend told me that there's this amazing race in the Mornington Peninsula. You need a certain time to qualify to be able to do it, but as you're doing a marathon, like you might be able to get the time. So I was like, oh yeah. So I did by quite a bit because it was pretty easy. And then right away I signed up for it just because my friend told me it was a really nice race. And so when I arrived there, I realized, I think after I finished the race, I was told this was the 50K Australian Championships. And that's why, and there was huge names there. There was the girl who won also won the 100K World Champs in 2016. I think Kelly Emerson came second or third, and she finished fourth at UTMB a couple of years ago. And then there's another girl who was on the 100K world team with me. So it was really strong. But I had no clue. And there's a few girls who finished behind me that were like really good runners as well. So I had no clue. It was like the luck of the beginner or something, because I had no clue what I was doing. As I said, I was wearing like race flats for that I probably made for like 10Ks on roads, and my feet were battered, and I didn't know how to wear my hydration vest, so I shaved, like my back shaved. It was crazy. I remember like almost crying when I went in the shower after that. It was just, and I didn't know how to plug the pipe, and one of my friends just at the start helped me, because I was like, oh, I cannot. And I put all my nutrition in the bag. So at the beginning I was running and I was just swashing around. So it was really funny. So it's kind of, so that's when I realized, like when I finished, people were like, wow, like that's really good. I was just like, wow, okay, I think I might be all right at this.
How was the race? I'm curious. Were you pacing yourself? Were you just going all out? Were you hanging with other ladies in there? What was your strategy for the race?
I had no strategy. I just wanted to. I was looking at time. I had a watch. I had been running for like 5 months, and I used another cookie cutter plan from Runner's World to prepare for that one. And I took a marathon plan that I just said like, hey, it's about like a marathon. And I trained on a loop in Melbourne. There's this loop. It's the Botanical Gardens. There's a loop, and then because there was one hill, so I was always going through that same hill. So that was my hill training. So so repetition is really not a problem for me. and so that's how I trained for it. And I had I just wanted to pace myself. So as I said, I started in the back because I was like, oh, I don't know, I don't want to have pressure. But I was just passing people, and just I was looking at the kilometer, like it was giving me and I was just like, oh, it's doing pretty well. But I was just like passing people and always, and at some point at I think second last aid station or something, like, or third last or something, like they were like the race organizers were like, hey, Emily, you're fifth and you're really close from the fourth. I was like, oh, cool. And I remember when I saw her, okay, I was like, I had already like strategy in my head. I was like, okay, I'm not going to pass her now. I just want her to know that I'm there. And then I'm just going to annoy her. And then and then I'm gonna pass her when I feel that she's so annoyed, and then I'll just go and take off. So she's gonna be mentally broken. And when I was telling that to people, they were like, wow, you have strategy. And I was like, this is so much easier than speed skating, because speed skating you have like a quarter of a second to think of your pass, of your moves and everything. As this, I had so much time. So I think I can credit my speed skating days on being able to use some kind of strategies and during races. Yeah.
It seems like you're very mentally strong. As you mentioned that repetition doesn't bother you. Like you go and do the same hill in Singapore, and then you train on the loop. And for a lot of people, that can be very draining, or it's something that they're like, there's no way that I can do that. And even now, if you're training on a treadmill, that also can be very mentally challenging. So I feel like you're very mentally strong. And even when you're talking about how you have that strategy just came to your mind when you knew that you were just behind fourth place, and your competitive instinct came out, and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And especially being having that speed skating background, I think, like you said, I think you were able to think of something and wanting to improve and pass fourth place. So that's great.
and then you did it all over again. First 100K, Hong Kong 100, and finished, I think 6th, was it?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it, I mean, luck with the new distance every time, or are you just sort of, you know, I don't know, because by now, by the 100K, I'm sure you had already discovered your trail running prowess, and you understood your strengths a lot better than you did back at the 50K.
Yeah, I had a coach when I did my 100K. So obviously I had just moved to Singapore, so I trained in Singapore for the Hong Kong 100. But yeah, I had a coach so I was trained properly for this. And it was a really tough race. Like it's rough.
Yeah. Don't you just love the staircase going up?
Yeah, I absolutely. In Singapore, there's one thing that you can train really well for: it's staircase, because you can just go up and down buildings. Because most people live in HDB, which is like the government subsidized buildings. So you can just pick one, and then some are up to 40 story high. So you can just train on that. So training on stairs is very easy in Singapore. Same thing, Ultra Trail Australia is full of stairs as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, at the end, it's like a 1 kilo. It's like, at the end, it's like 1,000 steps for real. Like, it's just.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was just Hong Kong 100 because people seem to have a love-hate relationship with that race. There's people who absolutely love it, and then there's people who just can't take the stairs. So I didn't think Australia.
So did you end up training a lot doing stairs for the Hong Kong 100?
Not for the Hong Kong. If I remember well, no, not that much really. But for Ultra Trail Australia, I did. My coach really made me do a lot of stairs. So but for Hong Kong 100, not particularly. I even try and think. I was just doing same hill a bunch of times, but I think I was just very like he made me do a lot of long. That previous coach was making me do a lot of long walks with like a weight vest and stuff like that. So it was just a lot of mental stuff as well, I think. But it was really cold. I remember it was the coldest year ever. They had like a record cold temperature. On top of Tai Mo Shan, which is like the highest peak in Hong Kong, it was like -2 or something like that. Which, yeah.
That's cold.
Yeah,
it's
good from Singapore.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Right. And then what happened after that, after 2006 and finishing Hong Kong 100? What was your plan for the next year?
I was doing, like, all of a sudden I was really like, I started doing some local races here in Singapore, and I do pretty well on the local scene. Like, we have a pretty competitive group of girls that are about the same strength. So it's really fun local, mostly road races here as well. I love roads as well, so I enjoy both. I'm better on trails, but I love roads as well. So I was fairly competitive on the local scene and everything, but we also wanted to start a family, because like I was in my early 30s. But my husband and I decided, like, let's try now, because it might take a while. We were thinking like that it would take a long time because I'm a runner. We're thinking like, like these things, what we hear. And it worked on the first try. So I was a bit surprised. I was signed up for a race in Japan. So, the one around Mount Fuji. So I was supposed to do the 50-mile version of it. Like, I don't remember the name of that race, and then I was signed up for Tarawera as well, 2017. But I got pregnant. So then there it went. So I got pregnant middle of 2016, and my daughter was born in March 2017. I had dreams of racing while pregnant, and like having like this active pregnancy and being able to run all the time. And I had to stop running at not even 20 weeks, because a few things. I had a pretty uneventful pregnancy, but at the same time, there was a few worry. Like I was having a lot of practice contractions pretty early on. So my doctor was like, let's be on the safe side and you have to keep your activity low. So all I could do was like stretching and really basic prenatal yoga. So that was really rough. When you go from training, like sometimes up to 100 miles a week to like just being able to do really mild prenatal yoga, it was, it was really rough. But then I was just like, it's for a good cause. I wanted to bring my daughter to full term, not risk, having preterm birth or stuff like that. And she made it to 41 plus, so she was late. So we did really well. But I put all my energy then to have, I wanted a natural birth. I wanted no pain relief, that kind of stuff. So I took all the energy that I would take to train for a race to train for birth. So I was just like, I was doing like all the hypnobirthing tapes, and I was seeing a chiropractor 3 times a week. And I just, I all my competitive energy, I switched to having the birth that I wanted, and it happened. It worked. I was very lucky because things can turn in any ways. But yeah, I got the birth I wanted and everything. And even then I took it as a race. I remember I was drinking like sports drink while in labor.
You see labor videos. I've never actually been present in one, but I mean, it's hard work. And I feel like, I think you need some electrolytes and there's some energy to you enough to push. And the fact that, did you end up taking any pain medication during the birth? No. Wow, that's amazing. Was it? I mean, I don't. Did it hurt as much as when you're pushing hard in a race, especially towards the end when you're just giving it your all and you're just trying to leave everything on the trail?
I'll run 100Ks over and that's what I told my husband. Like, I think the day after, not even like just after it happened, I was just like, running is way easier. That's why when I meet other women who, like, for example, my mother-in-law is always like, oh, I have no pain tolerance. And I'm like, you gave birth to 2 kids with no pain relief, because back in the days there was no pain relief. And I'm like, you gave birth to 2 kids without pain relief. You're strong. Like now I'm just like, like if you can do that, and even if you took pain relief, it's still a big work. But I mean, like, if you do that without pain relief, you can do anything, to be honest.
So what was the progress after that? You had your daughter, and then immediately, how long did it take you before you were back to training after giving birth?
Yes, I only waited 4 weeks. I wouldn't say I didn't have any consequences. Like, I just felt ready. I felt ready after like 1 week. I was like, I'm just gonna wait until 4. I'd say OBs usually say 6 weeks is recommended. I just felt fine. So I think having a natural birth is already big. So you don't, probably if I had a C-section, that would be different. So I was completely fine. I went slowly. So I was going like 3 or 4 times a week just for 30 minutes. And I would walk if needed, but even then I didn't walk long. I was just like, no. But yeah, like at the beginning it was just, and I was doing also like videos, like postnatal videos, to try and start building up my core again. But that was probably the longest work, because I hired a personal trainer that specializes in postnatal women. So it was like the sessions seemed like ridiculous, because all it was just trying to reconnect my core, because it was because but that was separate. Like I wanted to take care of that as well. But running was 4 weeks after, and I just built, and then I started working with a coach. Then after about 2 months of running on my own, just as base, and then I wanted like structured training again, and I had already my goals. I was like, at the end of 2017, I wanted to run the Singapore marathon in at least a similar time that I had run the last time, and then I wanted to run Tarawera 2018. So that was my within a year I wanted to be able to run 100K competitively. So that's what we built to that point. But when I first started, like I remember I was looking at times like I was running like a 7-something minute K when I came back. Like,
yeah. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. I mean, you gave birth 2017. You took 4 weeks off, and then you did another 2 months of easy running, got a coach, slowly got back into it. Next year, you're crowned the Australian champion.
Wow.
So you were breastfeeding during that phase, and you were obviously training. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been Australian champion. So,
yep.
So I'm assuming training was at an all-time high,
yep.
as was family, motherhood, family responsibility, breastfeeding, and then taking care of the baby and nappies and everything. Talk to us a little bit about that. How did you manage that physically, and then mentally? How did you get a balance between such a big commitment at home and to training as well?
And I work full time as well.
Okay, yeah. Throw some more, throw it all in. Yeah.
And here in Singapore, we have very little maternity leave. So I got in total, I think, 4 months. And one out of these 4 months was me waiting to give birth because she was late. So that was it. So I got 3 months with her. But we live with my in-laws. So that was already like some help. Plus, here in Singapore, we have it's quite easy to have hired help. So we've got somebody living. But in the first few months, I didn't have anyone helping me with cooking and everything. So I had to do that as well. But at some point, I got somebody to help me with cooking. So that was huge. But at the beginning, like I just saw things one by one, and I just had my goals. And I think, and I had and having the structure of a coach and not having to think of what I needed to do, just having my program and being like, all right, that's what I'm doing, and being accountable. I don't really need discipline because I have it, but just having that structure was just really it was comforting, and just having my goals and everything. So I just was taking like whenever I could. So because I was working full time, I had to pump at work. So I had to have an extreme structure. Like I would wake up early, go for a pump, then go for a run, then come back. Then baby would be awake. So breastfeed, eat breakfast, go to work, pump first, pump mid-morning, then, lunch, and then sometimes another pump in the afternoon, then sometimes a workout in the afternoon, then come back home and breastfeed, then dinner, then breastfeed again, then another pump at night. Sometimes I would even wake up in the middle of the night to pump because I wanted to have enough milk the day after, just while I was away. So it was just a big structure. Like I had to have like everything really structured, so that helped. But at the beginning, that's why as well, the first few months, my goal was just a marathon, because I didn't want to have to go out for more than 2 or 3 hours for my runs, because the first few months as well, you cannot, because when you're far away too much, technically, like your breasts won't, you cannot stay away from your baby for too long because your breasts get really engorged. So just for that, I couldn't. But then slowly, the baby needs a bit less milk, and then so slowly you produce a bit less, whatever. But still, my goal was still to be able to produce milk, because she was exclusively breastfed for the 6 first months of her life, so she had nothing else. Then we introduced solids at 6 months, but for the first year of her life, her main source of calories was breast milk, and that was important to me. I did not want to jeopardize that, so that was my biggest goal. But then I had my running goals as well, and when I was researching, I couldn't find anyone who had done that. It was There has been other mothers who are, but I mean, I'm sure there are, but like from what I was saying, like, or when I was looking, people were like, oh yeah, I breastfed, but I quit at 8 months because I wanted to run, let's say, comrades. So I breastfed until the race, and then there was no one who was like, like breastfeeding for a long time and running at the same time. And so, but my goal was to do at least 2 years. So I had that number, but I was going 6 months by 6 months. I was like, all right, another. So yeah, so I just had my goals, and I just had that, but everyone was telling me, my mom kept on telling me, like, you're not gonna have if you run so much, you're not gonna have milk. And then there's other people who were telling me that here. Like, I remember meeting other women, and they were like, oh, you already started running again. Oh, you must not be breastfeeding. Your baby's on formula. Like, I was just like, no. It was just people could not believe that you can actually have a sufficient milk supply and run. And to me, to me, it was just an easy equation. You just do not diet, just eat enough. Because
Well, that was a question that I had, actually, is whether you changed your diet or anything while you were breastfeeding, because it seems like your schedule just seems very hectic and very structured, but you're doing a lot throughout the day. So how did you manage to get enough nutrients and all the good stuff that you need when you're breastfeeding?
Yeah, so I never dieted. That's one thing that I've always, because I get a lot of women who write to me and I like, oh, I'm trying to run, but then my milk supply, and I'm like, are you dieting? They're like, well, yeah, because I had a baby and I want to lose the baby weight. And I'm just like, cannot. You have to choose. And I was lucky, like, everyone's hormones are different. I was mentally prepared. Somebody told me that she only lost the 5 last kgs when she stopped breastfeeding. Some women just drop the weight like this. Some women, their body is just careful. So, everyone's body is different. And you know what? I was mentally prepared. I might have an extra 5 kg on me, and that's okay. And I had to live with it. And I was lucky. After 4 months, I was back to my previous self, and even skinnier. But then again, it was just, okay, cool. I think it's just running and everything. Sometimes I was like, oh, like I could. There's always that in the back of your mind when you're a woman, when you are an endurance athlete. You always tell yourself, like, if I was a couple kilos skinnier, like, I could be a bit faster. It's so easy, like, I was always tempted, but I was like, what's your biggest goal? What's your most important thing? Is to feed my daughter for the first 2 years. That was my biggest goal. And then after that, of course, a close second was my running. But my most important goal was to keep a milk supply. So that's why I was just like, I resisted it. And yeah, I probably could have been skinnier if I would have dieted and stopped breastfeeding, but it's not what I wanted. And I made a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of time that I spent without my daughter because I was going running and everything. But in a sense, I felt like I compensated in that I gave her breast milk for more than 2 years. Well, in total, almost 3 years. Actually, we stopped last December at 2 years and 9 months. So yeah. So I filled my goal.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I just ate enough. If we go back to diet, like. I ate as much as I cared for. I never forced milk. I never forced food down my throat, but I just, if I was hungry, and that meant snack before bed, like, that's what I needed. And especially with training and everything. And also I've been supplementing because, like, my diet is not lacking. But what I've been asking of my body is just not normal. Like, breastfeeding is already a huge ask. I think you're already asking for 500 calories daily just from breastfeeding when you're and then plus the nutrients. So there's plenty of nutrients that you need to take care of. So obviously, like, like iron, like vitamin D, like what else as well?
Omega 3, DHA.
Yeah, absolutely. The omegas like are very important, like fats in general, protein. So that's all things that I needed to. So I think I put a bit more emphasis on protein than I used to, and also on good fats. I used to worry a bit about fats and stuff, and I was just like, no, and I supplemented with. I've been supplementing with DHA and even some ALA. I sometimes go for a while without DHA and more ALAs, and then I add back DHA, and I play around with that. I've been taking I took a prenatal even years after giving birth, because it's got all the nutrients needed, especially when you're breastfeeding.
Yeah.
Vitamin D has been a classic for me, like especially, we're under the sun a lot, but still, I think the best way to get all the vitamin D, you have to be naked, but I cannot do that.
You wouldn't want to do that on the old slope in Singapore.
In Singapore, naked, I don't think would be very appreciated.
Wow.
Yeah,
no, I'm just saying it's mind-boggling. I mean, it's you explained your regimen, and it's such a strict regimen that you were on, after you gave birth. It's so delicate, because if you miss one component of the day, it'll throw the entire day off. You have to pump and then go for a run, and if you miss that, you may not end up going for your run, because then that time slot is then obviously devoted to something else. So it's really brave to take on something like that, and then to maintain it for 2 years and do it every day. It's just
to me
incredible.
It's an incredible story. I think it's very admirable. I think a lot of women, sometimes we find it difficult. I'm not a mother, so I can only imagine how much additional responsibility is to have a child. And even now, when I'm just training, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll sleep in, or you make some excuse or something, and just the fact that you had such a regimented structure is just unbelievable. But it goes to show how much commitment you had to your goal to breastfeeding your daughter for 2 years, which was your main goal, and then you also didn't want to compromise your other goal, which was running. So you have to, like you said, you have to sacrifice certain things to get what you're hoping to get.
Yeah.
I mean, social life was pretty inexistent, except and like my husband and I rarely. My husband's very active too, so a lot of time dates, like date nights, are not so often, like, because it's always like, oh, I need to wake up early for this, that. There's other things that, and I'm very lucky. My boss is extremely flexible. So I work in a gym, basically. So if I need to go on the treadmill, it's always there. And when he hired me, that's one of the things I asked. I said, I need to be sometimes training in the afternoon, but obviously I'll make up for it. I won't take a lunchtime. I'll eat at my desk or whatever, but he's fine with it, because we're in the fitness industry, so he likes the fact that we're active. But yeah, so it's a very flexible boss has been really helpful as well, because I heard some bad stories of women who pump at work, but then they have to finish the day later because they took time away to pump and that kind of stuff. Like he was always extremely understanding. At the end, I was like pumping on my computer, and I had like people coming in. Like I just had a cover, like it was getting a bit too comfortable. And especially in Singapore, it's like, hey, but yeah, it's but yeah, now I look back, I'm like, wow, okay, that was very structured, but it's out of love. It's, we always say that, but it's out of love for my daughter, and out of love for running. If I did not like running, if I didn't love running, I would not have been able to do that. If it would have been something else, if it would have been like, oh, going to the gym just to like do bicep curls, like I would not have been motivated to do that the way I was. But I love running so much that, you know, I had my goals that, yeah, it was easy. Yeah, now that I look like, yeah, it looked very like structured and regimented, but to me it was just what I was doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of couples and a lot of women who have a question like this. If I get pregnant, am I going to have to stop training? Once I give birth, how long will I have to take off? If I'm breastfeeding, can I train? I hope they listen to this story, because you've clearly shown that, you know, you can manage both. It may not be easy, but it's possible. And you can flourish in both. I mean, you've done well with 2 years of breastfeeding, and then you've gone on and raced competitive races. I'm just looking at the data, and 2019 was Ultra Trail Australia, 5th.
Wow.
So that's a great accomplishment, and I'm sure that took a lot of training. How was the build up to that race?
Yeah, it was. I went to Hong Kong before that too. I usually do that. I'll go to Hong Kong for like a 50K race as a build up for the 100K, and because Hong Kong is fairly like, because it's staircases, and for me it's fairly close. So I did that. I did a race in Hong Kong, and I felt really good. Except I got lost like 3 times. I think I ended up doing like 9 extra K. Like, it was a 50K race, but I finished with 59K. So I was just like, okay, it's a good training day. But I felt really good. Yeah, it was just training. Like, sometimes at this point, I think I was training more in the afternoon, because my daughter's schedule changed. So she preferred having me in the morning when she wakes up. So I would go, sometimes I would run from work and then do I like to run commute, and then I would go by like a building and do a bunch of staircase, or I would go on the trails after work, and then like I would get some some night running in a little bit as well, because I knew I would have to probably run for 1 or 2 hours in the dark. I think I ended up having to run for about 2 hours in the dark at Ultra Trail Australia. So I got that. But yeah, like I would just fit it in, and then weekends are like just training. It was sometimes 6 hours, and then most of it up and down that hill here in Singapore, just called Bukit Timah Hill, BTH. So there was a lot of up and down of that. And as much as I could, it was pretty technical for me, because, you know, we don't get much technical trails here in Singapore. So my technical training I get when I go to races, and the first half of Ultra Trail Australia is technical. For me, it is. Like, for some people, maybe like, but there's a really long technical descent, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so much. And I didn't choose the right shoes as well. They were not grippy enough. They were more like hybrid shoes, which was good for the last half of the race. Is mostly like is fire trails. So, but the first half is mean. So the first half, at some point, I wanted to quit, and I was just like, I'm done. Like, it's just too much. But I just kept going, because I had a guy that I knew from work had just passed away from cancer very suddenly, and I thought of him, and I was just like, he would give anything to just be alive, and I'm just wanting to quit because I'm not doing great. Like, I'm gonna do that for him. And I just thought of, and just thinking of this guy who had just passed, like, really helped me just keep going, and I ended up doing really well. So but that's I think every race there's a point I'm just like, oh, I should quit now.
All of us.
I think we all have a moment where we're like, why did I sign up for this? What am I doing out here? But I think the fact that you kind of dug deep, and so you found something that resonated with you, and that helped you get a second wind and finish the race strong. That's great.
We have some questions coming into the chat room. I'm going to grab a few here. So Santosh is here. He says, hello, is it advisable to do tempo and interval training on a treadmill?
I think so. I think tempos, especially when you start. I remember my first tempo runs when I first started, like training for marathons and everything. I think that a treadmill is great, because you can really set up to the speed that you need to, and it teaches you to keep that tempo. So I think it is very advisable. And interval training runs, yeah, absolutely. And as well, like you can also play with the incline with a treadmill. You can get some awesome training on a treadmill.
Yeah. You said you do that in the afternoons sometimes. So do you run a lot on the treadmill? Do you still do?
At the moment, we're in semi-lockdown, so I'm at home. So, but we can go run outside. So, God bless Lee Kuan Yew for that. No, not Lee Kuan Yew is dead. Lee Hsien Loong, sorry, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong has given us at least the opportunity to run outside. So that's good. But I don't have a treadmill at home. But usually when I work, if I need to fit in a training in the afternoon, I'll do it on the treadmill. And I tell my coach, and he actually gives me like training for the treadmill, so lots of inclines. And yeah, so you can get so much good trainings. When I was training for Tarawera 2018, I was in my hometown for Christmas. And Tarawera was like in February, so I was in peak of my training, but it was like -30 outside. And I'm born and raised in Canada. I can take the cold, but that was just not on. So I did some long runs, like some 35, 40 Ks on the treadmill in the gym. Yeah.
Long runs.
Yeah.
I think the most I've done is maybe 3 hours.
Yeah, we've gone about 3 hours. We have a heavy monsoon. So sometimes during the monsoon, we'll go to the gym. And then, I remember we had a rolling hills session a year ago for 3 hours. It's pretty crazy. Shravant is here. He says, how do you approach nutrition in your ultramarathon training block? And any difference in your diet for a marathon versus an ultramarathon?
That's a good question. I'm very intuitive. Like if you're looking for somebody who's counting like macros, and that's not me. Like I'm super intuitive. But in general, and since I had a child, and like I've put more emphasis on protein. I used to be like, oh, especially when I turned vegan, I was like, protein are everywhere. Like, ooh, like, you've got protein in fruits and, like that kind of stuff. And then I realized that when I was actually putting emphasis on every meal, having a heavy source of protein, so having your beans, having your seeds, having your tempeh, your tofu and everything, it actually made a difference. So, so I put even an extra emphasis when I'm training hard. And after a hard training, I will take a replacement like right away, like after a tempo or a tough interval training or a long run. Right away, I will have like a protein and carb mix, which is like a drink, and then later I'll have a meal. But I just go really intuitively. And is there any difference between marathon and ultra marathon? No, not really. It's just as I feel. Very, very intuitive.
Yeah, you may just end up eating a little more depending on your weekly mileage. If you're running a couple of more hours for the week, you're burning a little more, so you may. But then again, it's intuitive. You're not going to calculate and say, oh, I ran for another extra 60 minutes this week, so I need 30 grams of carbs and stuff like that.
I eat what I need. But the only thing is, maybe for a marathon, I will, for the last 2 weeks, it's the only time that I will maybe care a little bit about my weight and be like, I would like to be a bit, not an ultra marathon, I won't think of that. But road ultra marathon, yes. When I went to the 100K World Champs, I watched what I ate a bit for the last 2 weeks because I wanted to be lighter. And same thing for marathons, because when you're looking at a pace and everything, like, so yes, that might be the difference. If I'm on the roads and I'm looking for a pace, I will probably try and get a little lighter. As if I'm on the trails, there's so many more things that happens on trails that I don't really think of that. But the roads are unforgiving. So
Yeah.
Pounding the pavement. Sri Guru is here. He says, what was the change you saw in yourself in terms of training for a competitive race after being trained under a coach? Yeah. So how was it before you got a coach and after you got a coach?
Yeah, so I didn't spend too long without a coach. As I said, I did 2 races, and then I went through 3 coaches. So because I have a lot of self-motivation, so I'm really internally motivated. I'd say for me, it's a cliche, but we always say, like, ultra runners, we usually don't need somebody to push us. We need somebody to, like, bring us back. So that's probably that. It's and my coach at the moment is extremely respectful of he's a father himself, so he knows what it's like to have to juggle family life and everything. So I run, like, he's very respectful of my time. He very rarely makes me do doubles, even though I love doubles, but I know that it would be really hard to fit that everything in. The difference, yes, the structure, and it's more because it's more tailored to me and it's probably better. But I have improved because I have improved, but I cannot really but to me, I just wouldn't do without. I love the structure. I love to have somebody every week that just checks in, or even, like, sometimes during the week. And it's a massive difference.
Yeah, I mean, if I speak personally, it's made a huge difference to me as well. Just to have someone. I think the biggest thing is you don't have to necessarily wake up and ask the question, what do I have to do today? There is a structure. You know what you have to do for the week. It gives you some element of accountability as well. Yes. Because you have to put in some comments after your run, and it's good to get feedback. It's good to get a pat on your back sometimes if you've done well. It's good to be told if you've been a little too lazy. So if you have a goal, it helps you stay committed as well.
Yeah.
There's another question. You said you wanted to run a 100-miler in some time. What is your dream debut 100-miler?
So I didn't say, but I started ultra running because I heard of a 100-mile race in the United States, which is my dream. I think you could Western States. I sometimes when I run whatever, I'm think like that I'm at Western. Like, it's, I don't know. Like, when I was younger, I wanted to go to the Olympics. Now I want to go to Western States. It's my, and I kept on saying, like, should I enter the lottery? I keep on asking my coach, like, this year, should I enter the Western States lottery? And he's like, no, because he knows that if I get picked, I have to go. But I think he's been. I was reading, like, he didn't have fun at his first 100-miler because he did it too early. So that's probably why he's keeping me from doing it now. But Western States is my dream is to do a top 10 at Western States. That would just be, that would be to me an Olympic medal. Like, it just, the whole thing just seems, every year, and that's why I'm really sad this year there's not going to be a Western States, because every year that weekend, like, there's 3 things that I love during the year. There's the Western States weekend, there's the UTMB weekend, and there's the Ultraman World Champs as well. I really enjoy. So some people watch the Super Bowl. I just watch, like, numbers going, like.
We have heard a lot about the race, of course, over the years, and we were lucky enough to go out there last year. We spent all day on the course. We were filming a little bit. We made a film on Camille, so we were there. We got to interact with a lot of athletes and just soak in the atmosphere, and it's a phenomenal race. It's
so different from being home, and you're either looking at Twitter to see what the updates are. We're runner X's, and over there we're trying, because we were following somebody. We're like, are we going to make it on time to the next checkpoint? Because we had to drive through quite a bit. So It is very, very different when you're there in person, but it sounds like a very unbelievable and very awesome race for a runner to run. So
I dream of bringing my brother as a crew, because my brother is a really good marathon. My brother is a 2:45 marathoner. He's pretty decent. So I dream of bringing him as a crew and stuff. Like I'm already like, I already think, I don't even think, you know. But it's to me, it's my Olympics. Like, I know, wow, you're very lucky to have gone there. Like, I'd love to just even experience it. Like, it's and I'm looking forward to do races in the States, because I love their philosophy there. The ultra running is still, even though it's blown up, it's still very they just like, they wear like random shorts. A lot of them still have handhelds. As here, like, everyone has spandex, and like same in it's just so different. I like how like relaxed that they still are, like the ultra runners in America compared to here, or everyone heated.
That's one thing we were talking about, because even at Western States, the top 10 guys, I don't think anyone had a pack. Maybe 2 of them had a pack. The rest were just handhelds. And, you know, they just come into the aid station, just have a chip, get some ice, and just switch handles and leave. So it's very different from UTMB. We were at UTMB, and everyone has poles and hats, compression. Oh, if you're not in compressed sport, you're not at UTMB. So you have to have your compressed sport. So it's totally different cultures.
Very much.
Both are very unique, and they're great atmospheres. They're just very different, and they're great races to follow.
But they're definitely.
Well, it's been
a pleasure speaking with you and getting to know you, and thank you for sharing your story and your journey as a mother. And it's very inspiring for those who are thinking about having a baby, and are also endurance athletes who might think, oh, once I have a baby, I'm not going to be able to do what I love. And I think you've shown that you are able to do both things at the same time.
Before we let you go, we have a quick fire round for you. So a couple of questions. Whenever you're ready. Yeah, good. Okay. 50K or 100K?
100K.
100K. And then, would you prefer drink mix or gels?
For the trail, a drink mix. For the roads, gels.
Interesting.
Your favorite post-run breakfast?
If it was a really post-run, a training run, I always eat oats. It's just like, I'm so boring. Oats with peanut butter and a bunch of seeds. And then,
that's all of us.
Yeah.
So yeah. And what's your favorite Unived product?
I love the coffee, and I love the drink mix. Actually, Camille Aaron's drink mix, like the orange one, really, really good. I like.
What's your dream starting line?
I think we know that now.
Western States.
Your dream start line. That was the last question.
My dream start line.
Yeah, your dream race. But I think you answered that already. So
yeah. Western States, and I cannot even think. And on roads, Badwater.
Oh, wow!
That's
Badwater 135.
Yeah.
Well, what pulls you to Badwater?
I have no problem with heat. Like, I run in the middle of the day. It's humid here, but here I run in the middle of the day. Here it's like, it's 35 in the middle of the day, but it feels like 40 something because of the humidity. There it's very dry. It's even worse. But that's one. I just love the grit that it takes, and just how like fringe it is, and and just crazy. And just like, when I tell people that, like, one of my dream races is like 135 miles in the Death Valley in the middle of summer, where it gets to like almost 50 Celsius. People are like, whoa, is stupid. And I'm just, and I'm just like, no, it sounds amazing. But it's a very expensive race. Yeah.
Yeah, you have a calling for really difficult stuff. Whether it's breastfeeding and training, or bad water, or running for 5 hours up and down the same hill in Singapore. I think you have a calling for something that's really mentally, I wouldn't say challenging, maybe mentally engaging. Just to get your mental game on. So yeah, maybe bad water next year, or Western States next year.
I need to get some funds for that. Apparently, it's a very expensive race because you bring your crew, and it's because you have to have a crew. You cannot run that solo because you basically need somebody to water you the whole time. But there's like one hotel. Yeah, it's pretty. But yeah, definitely, I will do bad water one day. That's for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. I want to thank Jerry at Red Dot Running Company for getting us associated. Anyone from Singapore who's watching, please visit Red Dot Running Company, rdrc.com, I believe. They have a wide selection of running gear, whether it's nutrition, shoes, accessories, whatever you want. They have 2 stores in Singapore. And then they also have a website, which is e-commerce, so you can order online as well during the lockdown. They are open. And yeah, if you are running up the only hill in Singapore, look out for Emily. I'm sure she's going to be there she'll probably be running when you start and running way after you finish as well. So if you see her, give her a shout. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Tomorrow we have, so Saturday and Sunday, we have 2 special guests, Emily. We have Vijayan from the Souls of Cochin. They are the guys behind the Vagamon Ultra, which is a beautiful trail race in South India through tea estates. And then Sunday, we have Anand, who's the crazy guy behind one of the largest ultras in India, the Malnad Ultra, which is also in the south, and it's through coffee plantations. So we're going to speak with both RDs and get their thoughts on whether the races will happen this year or not, whether they'll get postponed or not. We'll see. So we're excited to speak with them and to see everyone else tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. Emily, take care, be safe, and hopefully things open up, and we'd love to come. Well, we have to come see Jerry at RDR.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes. And I need to go to India.
Yes.
Yes. For a race in hot, challenging conditions.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not going to be fun for you. So.
Yeah.
Not too technical though, but yeah.
It's not. Most races that we've done haven't been very technical, so I think they're doable for you.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
All right. Have a good evening. Take care.
Good night.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.